Good morning, everybody. Welcome along. Today is Friday, the 11th of September. This is our Magical Movements session for you. I'm doing it outside of the gym. Some reorganisation going on as far as getting the room that I normally use is ready for something else. So I thought I'd do this from home for you today. Still the same sort of movements. Let us have your comments. Let us know what you thought of it. And remember, our Magical Movements is all about movements that we would do in everyday life, activities that we do in everyday life, and focusing on those movements. There's a seated option available to you throughout, and there's also standing work as well. If we can work in a standing motion, then we're going to challenge our balance a little bit more. But it's about the functional moves that we do on a daily basis and how those movements work within our body. What part of our body is supporting, what part is moving, and an opportunity for the brain to practice and rehearse the changes that need to happen in our body to allow movement to happen. So we'll start off by mobilizing ourselves and getting a little bit warmer. So find yourself a position, have a chair available if you need one, some external fixed support available for you as well. To start off with, let's have a look at our posture. So from a standing perspective, take your feet so they're in line with your knees and in line with your hips. We need to keep the knees slightly soft normally, so we're not going to lock them out, which would be here, but likewise we're not going to bend them too much to start off with. We're going to soften the knees. Imagine a balloon between your ribs and your hips. Give it a couple of extra breaths of air to lift the hips away and the hips and the ribs apart, lifting the ribs a little bit higher, and we take the shoulders up towards our ears, back with the shoulder blades together, and press down. From there, let's start by taking a deep breath in and out, and again breathing in and out. Two more times like this. Deep breath in and out. One last time, breathing in and out. Okay, from there, let's have a look at some mobilization. So with our shoulders, lift the shoulders towards your ears and then press them back down. Lift and press. At the same time, let's lift and stand tall. As we press down, bend the knees as well. So lifting tall and pressing down. Lifting tall and pressing down. Excellent. Coming up and down. Take a little pause there for me, and let's focus into the rotation of the shoulders. So your movement is to bring the shoulders forward, lift towards your ears, come back, shoulder blades together, and press back down. Now really focus on this lifting and this pressing back. Mobilizing through that shoulder and feeling every part of your shoulder joint mobilizing as you work through. If you feel you have less mobility on one side than the other, then you may want to focus on that for a couple of extra, just to bring some additional movement in there. From there, take a pause, take a deep breath in and out. And again, breathing in and out. Lovely job. Okay, let's take the feet a little bit wider and shift the weight from side to side. Now in our seated position, if you want to be in seated, make sure you're in the front third of the chair. So we're sat at the front of the chair. From here, with this movement that we take across the body, shift your weight from side to side. So as you come across, you lift one side, one buttock, and then the other, taking that hand across. Exactly the same in our standing position, but we're shifting the weight from side to side. Switch to the other hand with that fluid motion, and as you take the hand across one side, the palm is towards the floor. As you come across the other side, we take it towards the ceiling. So across and back, shifting the weight the whole time. Across and back. From there, let's put both arms in Just shifting that weight, flowing through, relaxing, calming movements, slow and controlled, but working through our balance. Take a pause in the center for me. Hips, feet outside, so they're in line with our shoulder. We're going to take a trunk rotation to the side. Pause in the center, and then the other way. Now in our seated position, exactly the same. We want to make sure the hips don't move. So if we feel a buttock lifting off as we turn, we know we've got some movement in the hips. I want you to focus on trying to keep those hips still. So we really focus into our trunk area. Trunk plays an important part in our everyday life. All activities that we do will involve your trunk in one way, shape or form. Even just standing tall, the trunk is working. Sitting tall, the trunk is working the whole time. If you feel your hips are moving and you're in standing, you may want to place your bottom part of the back and your bottom against the wall or a table, and there, with that movement from side to side, with the pause in the center, we can feel if we start to lift off the table, the wall, that there is some movement into our hips, and we want to avoid that. Just 3, 4 or 5 on each side, just to mobilize through there. And then take a pause in the center. Bring the feet in. I want you to tap your toe in front and bring it back. Tap your toe in front and bring it back. In your seated position, we have a toe tap and back in. So just starting to work through those legs a little bit more as well. Brilliant. So tap and a place back. Tap and a place back. Keep going with that movement, just stepping forward, but just placing the toes down onto the floor. Don't put the whole foot down onto the floor. Let me just change something on here for you so we lose any notifications that are coming in. So just tapping that toe onto the floor and bringing it back. We've got a shift of weight, so as we tap forward, we've got a knee bend look. A little bit of a softer knee, so now we're coming into a bit of a knee bend and we're placing the toe on the floor and bringing it back in. Take a pause there, come back into your shift of weight, whether you're in seated or standing, and if you feel comfortable with it, both hands in. Shifting that weight from side to side. As you shift across to the side, your knee comes no further out than the side of your shoe, and we're working through our trunk. Take a pause in the center, and let's take one hand down to the side. Back up with a pause, and then across the other way. So just focusing into this sideways bend. Again, working into our trunk. In our seated position, we may want to use the leg of the chair to come down. Just focusing again on mobilizing and feeling that movement through your trunk. Now think about everyday activities, reaching to pick something up, getting something off a lower shelf. This is where these movements will come into use. The pause in the center allows you to focus back onto your posture. Coming down, reaching, and then pausing. And this movement is straight down and straight up. Don't come forward and don't come backwards. From there, take a pause, come back in, and let's just shift that weight from side to side again, just using this as our holding pattern. Okay, I want us to focus into our head a little bit today as well. The movements that we make with our head can challenge our balance, but we do it every day. So here's an opportunity for us to practice, for the brain to get used to the fact that we have movement in our head that may challenge our balance. So standing with your heels outside your hips, shoulders width, chin stays level, we turn to the side, we pause in the center, and we turn the other way. Now if you have some support available, You may want to place your hand down if you feel at all unbalanced. Sometimes just that finger placement onto an object lets our body know where we are in relation to our surroundings, and we can feel balanced once more. And seated, exactly the same. One last movement I want us to do as far as our head is concerned is just to restack everything. In everyday life, we start to bring the head forward. It's one of the heaviest parts of the body. We start to lengthen the muscles through the back here, and we start to bring this head forward a little bit. Sat at a desk, reading a book, typing on a laptop, anything like that, we're starting to stoop forward. So we need to lift our shoulders back and down. That's the first part of it. But let's restack the head as well. Let's align those vertebrae. So here is a movement for you. I'll come down to this position so you can see. If I place my fingers on my chin, we're going to straighten out and lengthen through the back here. Creating a double chin by keeping the gaze in line. We can either press back with our fingers, or we can leave the fingers where they are and press the head back. Feeling that lengthening through the back of our neck. Feeling the vertebrae lining up and creating that double chin. Take a pause there for me, and let's go back into this sway from side to side. Excellent. Breathing nice and deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe out through your mouth, listen and feel the air coming out. So we're breathing in and out. Really fill those lungs, and then take a pause there. Let's just have a look at our ankles. Our ankle, feet and toes, they play such a crucial part in our balance. With some support available if I need it, place the toes on the floor. Take a look, lift and put the heel in the same place. Toe and heel. Once you're comfortable with it, look ahead. Your supporting leg is staying soft at the knee. If you don't need support, then you can still do this. Just have some available should you need it. In our seated position, first thing we need to do is bring the foot back a little bit if we're going to do this movement here. But what we may want to do is shift back into the back of the chair. So right to the back of the chair, extend the leg out, point away and bring it back in. Pointing the toes away and bringing it back in. So really mobilising through that ankle joint. And if you think about our walk, we utilise the ankle joint there, change to the other side. So if you're using your support, turn to the other side and point and flex. Now that may sound obvious that we use our ankle when we walk, but have a look at a walk. It's a step forward, the heel comes down, we come onto the ball of the foot and then onto the toes, and our back foot at the same time comes up onto the toes. There is your flex and your point, that shift of weight. So this really focusing on it allows us to really ensure we have good mobility through our ankle joints. If we have good mobility, we have good stability. Flexibility in there will allow us to react to situations on the pavement. So if we have to change direction, if we feel as though we are possibly going to fall, perhaps in the winter, a good reaction as far as your foot is concerned and your ankle will relate to that. Your ankle's continually working to assist you as far as balance is concerned. Okay, from there, take a little pause. Let's bring it back in. We've got a knee bend, a raise up, and a shake down. Raise up and shake. And in your seated position, again, we're lifting and we're shaking down. Just loosening off through there. Okay, take a pause and let's have a look at our first movement. So we have our feet outside our hips. I'll show you in standing first and I'll give you a seated option. Our feet outside our hips. We're going to reach across and we're going to pull back in, shifting the weight across, reaching over and pulling back in towards us. So the hand is towards the floor and then we pull back in. Hand towards the floor and pull back in. Do a few on one side and then you can change to the other side. So reach across and pull back in. Reaching across and pulling back in. Now the movement is exactly the same in our seated position. We're back into the front third of the chair. We've got a lift of the buttock as we reach across. So there's our shift of weight. Don't lift your bottom totally off the chair. Just move the weight more onto one side. So if you think of your bottom as your sitting bones, the feet of your upper body, we're shifting onto one and then we're pulling back and then we're changing to the other side, shifting and pulling. Keep that posture strong, so shoulders are lifted back and down the whole time. We're bringing those shoulder blades together and we're pressing the shoulder blades down as if they're going to sit in some back pockets. And there's our movement. Brilliant. Okay, from there, we've just limbered up. Standing with your feet outside your hips. Take a deep breath in, float the arms up, and then float them down. So we lift and we lower. We lift and we lower down. Fingertips towards the floor and then towards the ceiling as you come on up. In your seated position, we've got this lift and this lower. This lift and this lower. Yeah? So a knee bend and a lower. Bending into the knees as we lift up and then lowering down. Bending into the knees, lifting up and lowering down. Now to start off with that movement, let's put a shoulder roll into there and then we lift and we lower. Controlled movements. So shoulder rolls, knees bend, we lift up and we lower down. Again, shoulder roll, lift up and lower down. Have a look at your feet, an option here for you. So as I do my shoulder roll, I can either pedal, lifting the foot off one foot at a time, or lift onto my toes and lower. Let me show you from the side. So we have there or here. Then we come into our bent knees as the arms come up and we straighten as we come back down. In our seated position, exactly the same. We can lift onto our toes as we roll those shoulders. Arms up, floating and then floating back down. Now, only do both feet if you feel comfortable with it. That's it. One more time, lifting, lowering, raising up and lowering down. Take a pause there. Moving on to our second part. We bring the arms around. We bring them in and down. Bring the arms around towards us and down. Okay, we're going to do this once and then I'm going to add a move on. So have a look. I bring the arms around. I bring them on towards me and down. The second time, I bring them around. I shift my weight across to one side, palms towards the ceiling, and then I pull back in with both arms. So here, to start off with, pulling around and down. Pulling around, shifting across to one side, and pulling back in. Again, in our seated position, we bring the arms around and press down. we bring the arms around, shift across to one side and pull back in towards us. There's our movement so far, so let's add it together. We've got the lift, we've got the knees bent, floating those hands up and then letting them come down. Taking the arms around in towards our chest and pressing down. Taking them around again, taking them out to the side and shifting the weight, pulling it back in towards us, and we're here. Yeah? Let's try that one more time. So shoulder roll, lifting, knees bending as we float the hands up, and then as we let them come down, we stand tall. Arms come around in towards our chest and pressing down. We take the arms around again, cross to the side, palms to the ceiling, pull back in and shift that weight and press down. You're ready to go again. This time, however, what I want you to do is as you bring the arms around, the second time, we take it across the other way. So we come round, we shift the weight across, and we pull back in towards us. There's our movement so far. In our seated position, exactly the same. Take a pause for a moment. I want you to have a look at this next section. So, we've taken the arms around and we've pulled back in. At this time, we're going to step. And then we're going to push down. Now, as I step in, I'm stepping onto my toe only. The hands are here and we press down. That's our first part of the movement, but I want to take it a stage further as well, so have a look. So I come around, and as I pull in, I step, and then as I press, I step forward. I bring the hands up, and I step forward again, diagonally, okay? So, here we have it. Arms come in, I step, I press, step through again and press the other way, yeah? In our seated position, what we're going to do is pull in, and then from there, as they do the step, I want you to turn and press, come into the center, rotate the other way and press down towards the floor, okay? So let's just practice that last bit again. We've got the move around. As we start to pull in, toe taps, and then we push down and press towards the floor. Lifting the hands towards our armpits again, we press the other way. Can you see how the feet step out diagonally? Heel comes down first onto the toes. I lift and step the other way, stepping across. So we've got this movement to one side, resetting, we have a movement to the other side. And this is stepping that we would do in everyday life. We may not walk like that, but we do these steps. And if we found ourselves in a situation where we had to make a step from side to side, those are the steps you would make. Again, it's good practice just to get used to that shift of weight from side to side and from the heel through to the toes. There is our movement so far. Let's put the whole thing together. So, standing with heels outside our hips, shoulders width. We roll the shoulders and we lift onto our toes, or we lift one toe at a time, 1 foot at a time. Bending the knees, we float the hands up, and then we bring them back down. We take the hands around, bring them in towards us, and press down. Again, we take the hands out, we shift the weight across with the palms towards the ceiling, and then grasp and pull in towards you, pressing down. First part, yeah? Second part, this tap and this press, step and press. We put the two together. As we pull in, this is where our tap happens. So let's give it a shot. Shoulder roll and lower. Knees bend, lifting those hands up, letting them float, and then sinking down. Arms coming round in towards our chest and pressing down and standing tall. Again, arms around. We shift the weight across to the other side and we pull back in. As we pull, we tap the toe. We press and we step. We lift, we shift the weight, we press and we step. In our seated position, remember, as we pull in, foot is flat on the floor, we turn and we press. We come back into the center, we turn and we press back down. So we've got this rotation through our trunk. Let's try it through one time on each side. So, standing tall, roll the shoulders, controlled movement. Knees bend, arms float. They lower, arms out, in towards us, pressing down. Again, arms out, cross to one side, pull in and onto your toe, step out and press, lifting back up, shift your weight, step out and press. Take a deep breath in as you come back to your starting position, breathe out, shoulder roll, knees bend and float the hands up, coming down, arms out and around, in towards you and pressing down, arms out, cross and shift the weight, palms to the ceiling, pull back in onto your toe, step and press, lift, step and press, making sure that you come onto the toe so you've got that rotation through as you lift and press. In our seated position, remembering that as we pull back in, we turn, we press, we bring it back up to reset in the center, turn and press, working through. Now as you press down, imagine you're pressing something down towards you. Really feel these shoulders pressing down as the body lengthens to stand tall. One more time through each way, seated or standing. Shoulders width, shoulder roll, lift up or one foot at a time. Knees bend, arms float and lower. Bring the arms around, back in towards you and press down all the time, mobilizing through those wrists. Coming across and shifting weight this time, pulling back in onto your toe. Step and press, lift, step and press. Come back in, reset. Shoulder roll, knees bend, arms float and lower. Out to the side, back in and press down. One more time, out to the side. This time shift your weight, palms to the ceiling. Pull back in as you pull, step, press and step through, lift, press and step through, and then take a little walk back to your start. From there, come back in to your sway that we started at the very beginning, with our arms going across, shifting from side to side, palms towards the floor, towards the ceiling, working through our shoulders and our wrists, working on our mobility through our shoulders and through our wrists. Pause there and take a breathe. Shoulders up, back and press down. Have a drink if you need one. Take a pause. Keep a little shift of weight from side to side, whether you're in seated or standing. Just so we've got some movement going through our body while we all gather ourselves, have a drink and refresh. Okay, from there, let's move into some strength type activity and some balance activity. So again, feet just outside our hips. We're going to step forward and bring it back in. Have a look at this step. As I step forward, my heel comes down. I shift the weight onto the heel and I bring myself onto my toes at the back. I'm not coming down into a full lunge. It's just this shift of weight. Okay, in our seated position, we can take the foot forward. You're not going to be able to step too far forward. Heel down, toe towards the floor and hinge from your hip. So have a look at this hinging movement. Can you see as I step forward, foot comes down, I hinge from my hip. The back stays straight. All we're doing is imagine this is a hinge on a door. We're closing the door, we're opening back up, sitting tall all the time, focusing on our posture. So we've got that step forward and we've got that hinge. Changing side every time with that step and that hinge. So again, in our standing position, we step and we come back in. There is no real hip hinge in this because we're taking the whole body forward. The hinge at the hip in the seated position allows us to simulate this movement that we're doing in standing. I want to challenge your balance a little bit. So please do make sure if you're in standing position, you have some support available to you and have a look at the movement. So what I'm going to do is step forward, heel comes down onto the floor or through to the foot, we're onto the toes at the back. When we're there, we're going to turn to the side, come back in, and then power back into our standing position. If you're utilising your support, do several on one side and then change your support. Have a look at this movement from the front. So I step, I come through, I'm onto my toes, I rotate, and I come back in, and then power through. Now, if you're doing this without support and you feel there's a little bit of instability, but you don't want to utilise your support, start with a wider base. So take your feet a little bit wider to start off with. Step and turn. We're turning away from the foot that is forward. With that wider base to start with, we have more support. In our seated position, then we're going to do the same. We're going to step forward slightly, hinge from our hip, and then we have a little rotation. This time your rotation is coming up diagonally a little. So step, hinge, rotate. So feel that rotation through your trunk. In your standing position, as I say, you're challenging your balance. So if you want to have some support available, please do. Step forward, turn, back in and release. But it's not a lunge. Have a look from the side. So it's a step. We're onto the toes, but I'm not lunging down. My knee is just bent because I've come onto my toes. There's our rotation. Back in. We power through that front heel to bring ourselves back in to our upright standing position. Just to work onto your balance. So a challenge that you can give yourself throughout the day to work onto your balance. If you even just want to stay with this part here, there is your first part of walking. So that shift of weight from your heel onto your toes. There is your walk. All we're doing is adding an extra challenge for ourselves by holding it there and putting a rotation in as well. The movement that you make, the range that you use, is exactly the right range to use. It's the range that is right for you that is in the important thing. Okay, from there, come back in. Let's have a little wind down, a little relaxation. So bring yourself into a seated position. Now, if you're coming from standing to seating for me, bring yourself into the chair. Feel the chair behind you. Lower yourself with control into that chair and then take a little hip walk into the front third of the chair. set your posture, lift the ribs away from the hips, shoulders up, back, and press down, sitting tall. In that position there, sitting tall, close your eyes if you want to, take a deep breath in, and out. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, hands are on your lap if you want, relaxed. They can be by your side. What I want you to do now is let yourself relax a little bit. So let those shoulders come down. Let them come forward a little bit. Lose these extra couple of inches between your ribs and your hips. Focus on yourself for a moment. Just focus on that breathing in and breathing out. Try to lose any external disturbances. Just listen to your breath coming in and out. Really fill your lungs, taking those deep breaths in. Staying in this relaxed posture, so we've lost all of the postural points I talked about earlier on. We're letting ourselves slouch a little bit, we're letting the shoulders come forward, we're supporting ourselves onto our knees. We're losing that active seating position. We're just focusing on our breath. And then from there, come back into your good posture. So sit tall through your bottom, lift, squeeze your buttocks a little bit, so feel yourself lift a little bit taller. That balloon between your ribs and your hips, give it a couple of extra breaths and lift the rib cage up. Lift the shoulders up, back, and pressing back down, sitting tall. We've opened our rib cage. Let's feel and hear the difference. Taking a deep breath in now. And out. Because we've increased our capacity within the chest area by lifting our ribs up, back and down and opening our rib cage, we're allowing ourselves more space for the lungs to expand. So really fill your lungs with oxygen and then blow it out. From there, take a deep breath in, bringing your hands up, and as you breathe out, push it away. Do it again, breathing in and pushing away. Bring the hands round to the side, shoulder height, and bring them in. Take a deep breath out, in and out. Again, breathing in and out. One last time, deep breath in as you come forward. Breathe out, bring the hands in towards you, push them away, release, and arms down by the side. Roll your shoulders and shake those arms out. Let's just finish by mobilizing through our wrists. So we've done a lot of wrist turns today with palms towards ceiling, palms towards floor, and then floating those hands up and down. Just loosen those wrists off. Taking a final deep breath in and out. That is our magical movements for this Friday morning. Let us have your comments, let us have your feedback. I'll be back with you next Friday for another one. Think about how those movements can relate to everyday activities. Have a practice of them. Take a pause of this video, watch it back again, practice those movements and see how you feel with them. Have a great day everybody, and I will see you real soon. Take care. Bye bye.